Reincarnated with an analysis system. Chapter 21 to 30. Chapter 21, a vampire for the hunt 2. Boom, boom, boom. Damn it. Stay still. Sage yelled with his hands slightly into the ground as he slid to the right after missing his chance to catch a deer hugs. Deer hugs are rare animals that are super fast and very smart. According to Sato, they looked exactly like buffaloes. The deer hugs were already running further away from Sage, at full speed, making the whole place blinded with dust. Damn it, get back here. Sage yelled. He sprinted in the midst of the herd with the aim of at least catching one. Just when he was about to grab one of the deer hug's horns, it stopped running, leaving Sage to dash to the front alone. Sato and Vlad stood at the side of the field with their servants behind them, such intriguing creatures. Vlad uttered. You've said that before, buddy. Sato said to himself. He sighed before looking at Deka, who hadn't moved from his spot. Hey, Helix, the elves grew stronger after they evolved, right? Sato asked. Less than affirmative. The elves before subordination were only rank F monsters, but after going through evolving, they are currently at rank A and higher, greater than. Sato still kept his eyes on Deka while he was listening to Helix. If I didn't know any better, I'd say the rank was game style, he thought. Less than negative. Would you like me to explain the ranking system? Greater than. Sato gave a heavy sigh. No, later. Right now I'm hoping he's not having stage fright. He uttered. Sage was suddenly seen walking toward them from the dust. He was walking slowly while he dragged 2 deer hugs onto the ground. A smile hit Vlad's face before he looked at Sato. Looks like he caught 2, rather impressive. He said. Sato tried to hide the disgusting expression he wanted to put on. What the hell is wrong with Deka? Why hasn't he moved? He thought to himself. Deka stood where he was as Sage passed him with the 2 deer hugs he killed in his grip as he whispered. Just give up while you can. No need to embarrass yourself any more than you need to. Sage grinned. Deka's eyes widened in shock as he looked at all the deer hugs running around. How is this possible? He muttered. These deer hugs, they are, how are they moving so slow? Deka yelled in thought. We've been lied to. The chief said they were impossible to catch, but they are so slow, even the other dude had trouble catching them. This isn't making any sense. Deka panicked. Deka, what's the hold up? Take a move already, Latina yelled. Yuri moved closer to Sato. Master, why not give me the task to catch the deers? She asked. Hold up first, let's see what he does. Sato replied, but still though, is he scared? He thought again. Deka suddenly looked back at all of them and pointed at the deer hugs. Is this some kind of joke? He asked with his face completely frozen. What are you talking about? Did you suddenly get cold feet? One of Vlad's vampires laughed. Darling, what's wrong? Latina asked. There's no way these are the fast-moving deer hugs. These aren't fast at all. Deka yelled. All the vampires paused before giving out a loud laugh. Can't move. I'd expect nothing from elves. You guys should just go on your knees already. You belong to us now. Sage voiced out with a laugh. Slow? What does he mean slow? Latina changed her focus to the deer and saw that their speed was at a minimum. You see it too, right? I've been noticing it all day. The environment, everything seems much brighter. We aren't the same elves we were anymore. Elena voiced. Sato couldn't help but smirk. Deka, please bring back 3 deer hugs for me. He shouted so Deka could hear. Okay, my lord. Deka responded. He took a few steps forward before whooshing to the front. The loud boom was heard as they watched Deka chase down a deer hugs and catch up in less than a minute. Once Deka was close to the deer hugs, the deer wanted to make a sudden stop, but Deka was 2 steps ahead. He grabbed the horn of the deer hugs and crushed it before lifting the deer to the sky and slamming it to the ground. Deka didn't waste any time. He pulled out the horn or the deer hugs and threw it at the next one with amazing speed. The horn went through 3 deer hugs' necks before stabbing the ground and leaving a massive hole from the impact. Everybody had a shocked expression on their faces, including Sato, who was making a stunned expression at the sight. What the hell? Dude just did a 950 with a freaking horn. Sato yelled in his mind. Less than correction, there is no such thing as a 950. Greater than. Shut up, this is bad. If these vampire freaks figure out how powerful he is, they might view us as a threat. Sato stylishly looked to at Vlad to see the annoyed face he was making. Ah, I knew it, we're screwed. He cried. Deka approached Sato with 6 big deer hugs on his shoulders. Here you go, my lord, I made sure to catch the biggest ones I could find. He said before dropping them on the floor. Sato still looked at the deer hugs and gave a weak smile. Okay, I can still fix this. If we just walk away and ignore the bed, I'm sure they'll think we forget and leave us alone. I believe this belongs to us. Sato slowly turned his head to see Latina and Elena raiding the vampire's belongings. In bewilderment, Sato froze up. No, wait, Sato yelled. Vlad cleared his throat before turning to Sato. I believe you won the bet. As promised, you get all my goods, but may I ask that you at least leave us a horse so we can. Before Vlad could finish talking, Latina walked past him with a sack in her hands. Not a chance, we are taking it all, right, my lord? She laughed. I'll go get the wagon, I've always wanted to ride one of those. Deka walked toward the horses and his presence alone scared the remaining vampires. Sato was still undecided on whether he should take it or not, but when he saw the huge gold Elena brought out, he immediately had a change of heart. Vlad, it was an honor betting with you, but this leader has to scram, see ya. Sato laughed before getting on the horse. Vlad felt pissed off and clenched his fist as he watched Sato and his people ride away with his horses. Chapter 22 Avalon's the name. It was early in the morning when the sun was just slowly starting to show itself. It's been 2 days since Sato won his bet against the vampire's Duke Vlad. 16 gold coins, 6 horses, 10 different magic crystals, and weapons, these were the equipment Sato took from Vlad. To top it all, the cold water sold bringing in an extra 8 silver into the village's finances. This was a major big win from Sato's perspective. He planned to travel to the main kingdom once he had settled on how to spend the money rightly for the growth of the village. 10 bronze equals 1 silver. 10 silver equals 1 gold. Getting 10 gold was enough for Sato to understand that he was rich to some extent, so now he planned to take the village to a whole other level. Being in the demon capital, he knew he couldn't meet any humans, and even if he did they'd either be in hiding or completely shut off. With that in mind he came up with a plan to help him, and the day arrived when Sato was planning to use that plan for his trip. Diana, one of the elves in the village, came out of her hut so early in the morning when the sun was barely out. She had a small basket with her filled with different farming tools. As she walked out of the hut, with a sigh she looked at the sunrise. I don't want to drag anybody down, I need to work twice as hard, she said to herself as he headed toward the small garden. On her way there, she met Deka and 2 other elves, walking toward her with a chopped-off tree on their shoulders. Oh, good morning, Diana, what are you doing so early in the morning? Deka stopped to ask while the remaining elves went along. I should be asking you the same thing. Diana replied, what are you doing so early in the morning? She raised a question of her own. Lord Sato said he needed a few trees, so I'm merely doing that before he wakes up, Deka responded. Oh, but, isn't cutting the trees down a bad idea? The witches of the forest might get upset about it, Diana stated. Deka smiled, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, he uttered, patting Diana's head before walking away. Diana sighed, I hope everything goes smoothly, she said with another sigh. She walked over to the garden and knelt down to take a closer look at the plants. The small garden was divided into 4 places with a red rope. On one side were the potatoes, another was the apples, another the grapes, and the last ones were the watermelons. And each one of them were looking fine. Hina fell to her knees to take a closer look at the plant and couldn't help but smile. This is insane, Hina muttered before raising her head to touch the potatoes and watermelons since they were the ones with the most developments. They shouldn't be growing this fast, could the water be causing rapid growths in the plants? She thought to herself. Diana stood up and was about to pick up the kettle of water on the ground when she suddenly sensed someone spying on her. As soon as she turned, someone sneaked up behind her and pushed her to the ground, which caused her to scream in fear. ... Sato was still sleeping on the lump of hay while he snored with half his body on the hay and the other half on the ground. Less than alert, call for help from subordinates. Greater than. Sato woke up after hearing the message Helix sent to him. What do you mean? He asked. A young elf suddenly knocked on the door. Lord Sato, there's trouble, my lord. The elf panicked. Not long after the massage, Sato and the elf went running toward where the danger was, and only to meet a couple of elves surrounded there already. When Sato squeezed his way through the crowd he met 3 animal humanoid men standing at the other side. One of them held Diana and had a sword aimed at her chest, while the remaining 2 intruders stood behind their leader. A frown made its way to Sato's face as soon as he saw the scene. What's going on here? He asked. Devanshi and Yuri were at the side, but they had calm expressions on and didn't seem to care about what was going on. The tiger beast man pointed the sword at Sato before tightening his grip around Diana's neck. Are you the one in charge around here? He inquired of Sato. Deka opened his palm and his scythe appeared. My lord, do not concern yourself with this, I'll handle it, he said while he approached the intruder. Sato placed his hand in front of Deka. Wait, he uttered. He looked at the intruders for a while. Animal ears, furry tails, and freaking animal noses. Are these guys beast people? Sato yelled in his thought in surprise. Less than affirmative. They are from the neighboring beast tribes, and their species varies. Cobalt, beast man, beast woman. Humanoid animal with intelligence. Greater than. No freaking way, beast people, damn, now you got me thinking of anime, Sato thought with a drooling smile on his face. But he immediately composed himself right after. No, this isn't the time to drool over this. Regardless of their species, they are still intruders. What is your business here? In case you haven't noticed, you're in, Sato stammered, which made everyone's eyes turn to him. Sato's eyes widened in shock. What the hell? I'm just realizing I don't even know the name of this village. Should think of something, I'm going to look like an idiot if I don't. Oh, I know, Sato yelled in his mind before giving the beast man a hard stare. Sorry, I choked on my awesomeness for a bit. Let me repeat that, in case you haven't noticed, you're trespassing on my village, Avalon, now get out, he shouted. Chapter 23 Karen and Sato, let's talk. The elves around Sato stared at him as they wondered when their small society was given the name Avalon. The tiger beast man keeping Diana hostage laughed at what Sato said. What kind of idiot are you? This village isn't even in the kingdom. How did it get a name then? Can you even afford it? The intruder mocked. Sato looked at him with a deadpan look as he observed the beast man. The crap are you talking about? You need to pay to name a village, he asked. You're their leader and you don't even know this. You really are just a stupid airhead. The beast man laughed again. Yuri and Devanshi suddenly stood up from where they sat and walked in front of Sato. Master, can I kindly dispose of this trash? It won't be long, I promise. Yuri requested with a warm smile on her face. Sato sighed. Before anything, this proves I need to strengthen the security of this village, he thought to himself with his hand on his jaw. Dekka, Sato called out. Yes, my lord, Dekka responded with his head bowed. Were you able to get the trees I asked for? Sato asked with his back facing the beast people. Yes, my lord, we were only able to gather 7 trees, although we wanted to get more, then this happened. Dekka explained as he changed his focus to the beast man. I see, can you get a bunch more? Sato inquired. Of course, my lord. Great, it will be urgent. Sato contended. Right away. Dekka bowed before raising his head to look at the 2 male elves beside him. Come on, let's go. He uttered before walking away. Are you insane? The beast man yelled. You want to chop off the trees of the witches, are you dumb? He yelled. Okay, that's it. Begum. Devanshi, at full speed, dashed toward the beast man before he could even utter another word. She landed a punch on his face and sent him flying to the ground with his sword following him. Dana fell on Devanshi's chest and was still shocked about the whole thing. What's going on? She asked. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. Devanshi comforted with a smile on her face. The 2 servants of the beast man, who were both wolf and rabbit, drew at their swords as the attack startled them. Sir Karen, one of the dogmen called out. Before he could move, a blue fast lighting appeared beside him at light speed. Looking to the side, he could see Elena with her sword drawn out. I hate intruders. She said in her usual cold tone. Elena turned the sword before striking the wolf boy on the neck with the bottom of her sword, which drove him unconscious. She puffed out a little air from her mouth before sheathing her sword. When she turned to get the other bandit, she saw that Latina had already taken him down. My head. Karen, the leader of the beast man said as he slowly opened his eyes to see Sato sitting on his layer of hay. Is that? Karen's eyes suddenly widened when he noticed he was tied up in a warehouse with Sato and both his servants standing beside him. Karen yelled in fear, untie me this instant. He exclaimed as he struggled to get free on the ground. Sato sighed, will you calm down, it's not like I'm holding a knife only thing. He inserted with his zealous expression. If not to kill me, then why tie me up, Karen asked. After hearing the question, Sato stood up and walked toward Karen, who was on the ground. Yuri and Devanshi just stood at the back as Sato discussed with the beast man. Bending down in front of Karen, Sato looked into his eyes before asking, why did you choose to attack my village? The question struck something in Karen. He thought he was being interrogated and felt the need to put on a bold font. Why the hell do you think I'm going to just answer you? Karen asserted as he looked Sato in the eye. With a sigh, Sato stood to his feet. I really don't want to do this, but you leave me no choice, he hinted while he walked over to the pile of hay and sat on it. He looked at Karen a bit with disappointment, which left Karen confused as to why Sato was looking at him like that. Yuri, Sato called out. Yuri, what's a Yuri? Karen panicked in his mind from the way Sato acted like some kind of mafia boss after calling out to Yuri. Yes, master, Yuri responded. Make him talk, will you dear? Right away, Yuri said before walking toward Karen. Please stay still, we don't want me to accidentally kill you. She uttered. Slamming Karen's head to the ground with her hand, she lifted his head with his hair and began to look him in the eyes with her body tilted forward. What are you going to do to me? Karen panicked, he couldn't look away from Yuri's red eyes, the grip she had on his head was too strong. Oh nothing much, Sato chimed in, she's just going to read your mind a little, and then as time goes on, she'll plant scenarios in your head, which will cause your brain to fry because of the excess magic flowing in it, you'd probably die or lose your mind, but it's a win-win for me, because no matter how I look at it, I will still get what I want. He said out loud with an evil smirk on his lips. Once Sato saw the fear on Karen's face, he knew he hit the jackpot, just like Helix said, beast people are afraid of mind control, probably past trauma, I don't want to use it against them, but I have no choice in this case. He thought to himself. Yuri pulled Karen's face closer, don't worry I'll be gentle, it will happen in a flash, you won't even know I give in, I'll tell you what I want but first, get this witch away from me. Karen pleaded with a hint of tears hanging around his eyes. Perfect, Sato responded with a smile, you can let him go now, Yuri. As you wish, Yuri replied before releasing her grip on Karen's face and walking back to her spot beside Sato. Okay now, tell me, why did you choose to raid this village? Sato asked calmly. Karen was still feeling hesitant to answer, but he knew that if he didn't, he'd have to face Yuri again. So he took a deep breath and sighed, I shouldn't be telling you this, not because I feel it's important but because I didn't want to get you involved, the reason why I did what I did was because of the vampires, Karen revealed. What are the chances he's talking about other vampires? Sato thought to himself with a dead look on his face. Chapter 24 Orland Free. Namruk is a big city located on the northwest side of the kingdom, it is home to numerous numbers of vampires and werewolves and ghosts. The beast people were located in the northeast of the kingdom, they were a small community but still hard to penetrate because of their cunning and survival instinct. A day came when a noble family from Namruk came to pay a visit to the beast people. They were the Delaware family, one of the most powerful families in Namruk after Duke Vlad. They asked the beast people to help with some task, the task being to fake a crime on the noble family Kiera, a werewolf family. But when they refused, they proceeded to take their women. The beast people had no chance against the vampires, an S-rank species, so they thought of another way. While some people in the beast race wanted to do as the vampires said, others wanted to move into hiding in a new place. That was where Karen, the second son of the leader of the beast people, came in. He and his followers thought they could take the village from the elves by force, but that plan didn't go as planned. After Sato heard the story from Karen, he sighed. So you thought taking something from others was a nice way to save your people? He asked. I had no other choice. My father was willing to be part of some political bullshit like that ever goes well, Karen replied. Your people, how many are we talking about here? Sato asked. Quote. We are just a small number, 23 at best, Karen replied. Less than notice, the beast tribe estimates an average of 100 in terms of population, adding information _ they are also a warrior race greater than. I see, Sato muttered to himself after realizing the tiger beast man was still willing to lie to him. What's your name again? Sato asked. Karen. The tiger responded. Here's how this goes, you can either tell me the truth, and I help you out of the situation you're in, or you lie to me and I kill both you and your men outside, either way works for me I assure you. Sato threatened in a cold tone. Karen frowned his face. You bastard, leave them out of this, it's me you have a problem with. He yelled with a loud roar following right after. You are mistaken again, Sato hinted before standing and walking over to Karen. I'll have a problem with all your tribe if the vampires find you here and think of me as an accomplice, but I'm willing to overlook this, if you just tell me the truth. He proclaimed. After some seconds of thinking forth and back, Karen decided to talk. He explained how the vampires got into the village and that the beast tribe population was about 150 in total. Where about 70% of the population were warriors, while the remaining 30% were normal citizens. 150 is quite a lot, I doubt they'd all fit here, unless, Sato smiled. I'll help you hide until the vampires give up their search for you. Sato asserted. Really? The beast man yelled in excitement. Devanshi and Yuri both looked at Sato, confused at how he planned to fit 150 beast people in the small village. But, in exchange for this, I want you to do something for me, do we have a deal? Sato uttered. Sato came out of the warehouse with his servants and Karen following behind him. Once Karen's subjects spotted him, they immediately left the porridge they were eating and ran to his side. Master Karen, are you okay? The wolf beast man asked with a look of concern on his face. I'm fine, were you guys treated badly? Karen whispered. Hell no, I never knew the elves were this nice, I ate porridge, and their children breaded my fur, I wanna stay a little longer. The second subject, who was a rabbit's beast woman, smiled as she spoke. Karen smiled, I'm glad you two are okay. He uttered, before turning to look at Sato to bow his head. Thank you for your generosity, I will repay you. Karen thanked. See you in 2 days. Sato replied. We'll be here, he uttered and raised his head, come on let's go. Karen and his subject walked away and entered the forest to head back to their home. Are you sure we can trust them, master? Yuri asked. Time will tell, Sato responded before walking away. Now that Sato had taken care of the beast people temporarily, he moved back to modifying the village. Using the trees that Deka had cut down, Sato used his skill record on the elves in order for them to help him build a wooden Japanese house. Using the wood and the heightened memory Sato gave them, the elves were able to build 2 perfect-looking Japanese-style houses. Jiro, one of the young elves, fell to the ground after nailing the plank of wood that was carefully sliced by Sato to the building. They used wood that Sato had altered to be 10 times stronger than nails and so far it was holding out perfectly. Chief, can we just do this tomorrow? The sun is killing me. Jiro moaned as he lay on the ground. I guess so, we are done with the 2 buildings. Goran said with a smile, let's head back. Yeah, finally, I wonder if Ari is done with the deer hugs, Jiro shouted with excitement. Before they got to Sato's warehouse, they met the elves centered at a location. When Goran and Jiro went to go check it out, they caught a glimpse of Orland holding Sato's shirt while yelling. What the hell, do you think you are doing to our village? Orland shouted, but Sato still had a dead look on. Yuri and Devanshi hadn't made a move because Sato told them not to, but they were brimming with anger as they watched. You need to calm down, Sato said with a calm voice. He's right, Orland, do you realize he's the new chief of this village? Show some res, Deka yelled. I don't give a damn who he is, are you guys blind? Can't you see he's changing the whole village to his desire? Orland shouted. You call this a bad thing? Boy, you're dumb, Sato muttered. Why you little? Orland was about to hit Sato but was immediately landed a punch on the face from Goran who dashed in unannounced. Learn some manners, boy, Orland asserted. Are you okay, my lord? He asked with a bow of his head. I'm fine, Sato replied, but on the inside, he was very shocked. Ma dude got flabbergasted. Chapter 25 Orland recruited. Orland stood up from the ground with his hand on his bruised cheek as he frowned at Goran. Chief. How long did you plan to keep me locked up? He asked. Standing at his feet, Orland moved closer to him. It's been almost 2 weeks, what the hell was I still doing in there? He raged with his attention fixed on Goran. Goran still had a calm look on despite the way Orland was yelling. How did you get free? He asked. That's all you're going to say? Some beast people broke in, if you wanna know, they are somewhere in this village and you idiots don't even know about it. Orland gave out a crazy grin as he uttered. If you're talking about the tiger dude, I already took care of him. Sato chimed in with a smile. Turning his head he stared at Sato for a while, this bastard again. Goran muttered to himself. Goran, Sato called out. Yes, Lord Sato, Goran responded. I know it's partially my fault for not bringing it up before, but why did you lock Orland up? He asked. If I remember correctly, wasn't he the one who was willing to help you elves calm down Devanshi? Yes he was, but he was also trying to end you in the village, Goran revealed. Sato was the only one shocked by this, the elves all looked away as if they were embarrassed by the fact Goran told him. See, we dark elves are naturally born to destruction and deceit, it was always in our nature, although after making peace with the pure elves we became harder to tell apart, but our instinct was still there, the need to be predators. All we needed was a little bit of negative thought and our instinct came back, it takes time to subdue them back, Orland went through the same thing, and was envious of your power, my apologies, I'll make sure he doesn't bother you again. Goran explained before bowing his head. Sato had his hand on the jaw throughout the whole explanation, I see, he uttered, okay then. Walking slowly toward Orland, he began pulling his shirt before tossing it to the ground. Yo, Orland my dude, you wanted to fight me before, still wanna go? He asked. Lord Sato, Goran called out in disbelief, the rest of the elves had the same look on their faces. Devanshi and Yuri were still in their spot and didn't utter a single word even when Sato offered to fight Orland. Lord Sato, I understand you might be angry, but I beg of you to reconsider this. Diana begged from where she stood. I am also opposed to this. Elena added her thoughts on the matter. Private jet rentals rates in 2023 might surprise you. PowerRhetoric.com. Sato ignored them and still kept his eyes on Orland. I'm willing to fight you right here if you just say the word. He expressed. Orland had a puzzled look on his face for a while, but once he felt he had an opportunity he grinned with excitement. Sure why not? Orland responded. All the elves stood at the side, while Orland and Sato were positioned in the middle, Orland with a grin voiced out. I hope you're ready. With fire covering his wrist, he charged toward Sato and threw a punch only for Sato to block it with his palm. The fire was still burning on Orland's hand but as soon as Sato iced his wrist, the fire went out immediately. Orland tried to pull his hand away from Sato's grip but he wasn't able to. Without a second thought, Sato landed a punch that sent him flying and crashing into one of the mud houses. Walking slowly toward Orland, Sato voiced out, this can't be all you've got, is it Orland? He yelled. Shut up. Orland whooshed out of the rubble and punched Sato in the face with his fire hand. Sato fell to the ground while Orland stood on top of him, and began landing a series of punches to his face. Swirling his legs around, Sato hooked his leg on Orland's neck and brought him to the ground. Orland's body bounced on the floor upon impact only for him to receive a heavy punch that pushed him back to the ground again. His black pupils were nowhere to be seen after the punch, he felt like the whole world spinning with him in it. They kept on punching each other, over and over again for almost 30 minutes straight while the elves watched. Both had bruises all over their faces as they stood a few feet away from each other panting with their swollen faces. Why, won't you go down? Orland chose his words as he struggled to balance himself. What, is this, the best you can do? I can do this all day. Sato replied with a forced smile. Private jet rentals rates in 2023 might surprise you. PowerRhetoric.com. Silence took over for a while until they both charged toward one another screaming with every step. Once they were close enough, they landed a powerful punch to their faces that brought them to their backs on the ground. Sato gave out a weak chuckle, who knew you were strong? He uttered. Quote. I can tell you were holding back. Orland cut in. Yeah, but you gotta admit, you feel much better right? You'd definitely feel more worthless if I just let you punch me till you're satisfied, but I guess you can call this a fair fight. Sato started hearing sniffing sounds and immediately turned his eyes to look at Orland. Are you crying? He asked. Orland tried to hide the tears but he couldn't. I'm not crying. The sun's just in my eyes. He replied with his arm covering his eyes. Sato looked away. He muttered with a deadpan look. You managed to change the village so much, something I couldn't do throughout the year you did in 2 weeks, Orland expressed. It's not like I did it alone, I had the others helping me. Where I come from, I guess you can say I'm what you'd call an average guy, never good at anything, background character at its fullest. But ever since I arrived, knowing there are people relying on me, it's a great feeling, and right now I want to change the elves for the better, with everything I could. I can't do that without you guys, you included. Sato voiced out. After listening, Orland cleaned his tears. How big is the change? I'm looking at Grandpa and he's way too different, he asked. Sato smiled. Hee, for example, what if I told you, I can guarantee you your own harem? He said. For real, Orland yelled in excitement. Definitely, you'd be a Riz master, top G. Sato laughed. What's a Riz? Simple term, a babe magnet. Even Goran can snag a babe, Sato laughed again. Orland laughed alongside him. If is not too mooch to ask then, can I, be included in this? He asked. Of course, first things first, do you want me to lead? Sato asked. I no longer have an objection. Great, welcome to Avalon, it's not official yet but it will be, soon, probably, Sato uttered as he looked to the sky. Thank you, my cheeks still hurt by the way. Orland uttered. They both laughed at the sight of their swollen faces. Less than Orland registered, undergoing evolution. Greater than. Private jet rentals rates in 2023 might surprise you. PowerRhetoric.com. Chapter 26 Rizaha for the Valkyries. 2 days passed since the fight between Orland and Sato happened, and since then the village had been growing steadily with the help of everyone working together. They didn't add any more Japanese-style buildings because the village had no space enough to contain them. The elves weren't builders, but with the little knowledge they had from staying with the dwarfs after escaping the demon's clutches, they were able to learn a few things. So instead, Sato made cement old style and built small self-contained buildings each, but had to break the other mud houses for more space. And also used some wood to build a small stable where he kept the 7 horses that he now had. Even the warehouse was demolished and replaced with a Japanese-style bathhouse for the village's hygiene. They weren't exactly perfect since the elves were not builders, but they did the job, and that was what Sato wanted. Sato stood in front of the Japanese bathhouse with a small smile on his face. This can't get any better. He muttered. Master, why exactly did you choose such a design? I would have expected you'd use the cement instead of wood like you did the others for more durability. Yuri said as she looked at the building. Sato hummed for a while as he thought of what to say. I guess you could say I just prefer style to durability, he replied before walking toward the building. Besides, I already altered the wood so it won't go down as easy as you think. All right, master, sorry I doubted your greatness, Yuri said while she followed behind him. When Sato got to the door, he took a deep breath. Ah! He yelled before sliding the door open. Once the door was open, Sato was immediately stunned by the inside. They got everything right to the last letter. Even though he did use his skill record to share a bit of information, he never expected them to get it to that level. Sato walked in and began to observe the inside. There was a small rectangular mat in the center of the building. It had no color, but it was attractive nonetheless. Wow, Sato exclaimed as he walked deeper. There were 3 paths he could follow, one on his left, right, and one in front of him that had a VIP sign. The first thing he did was slide open the door to the VIP and saw a small hot spring there. He shouted in joy before entering. It worked, he yelled. Going to his knees, he placed his hand in the water to feel how warm it was. Yep, this is definitely a hot spring. Hina walked in and looked around for a bit. She had no idea what was going on but still chose to follow. Lord Sato, Yuri called out. What's up, Yuri? Sato responded as he kept playing with the water. Are you sure this is a bathhouse? She asked. Of course, it is. Take a bath in this and you'll feel brand new, I promise. Sato said before standing to his feet and walking out the door. Once Sato left, Yuri stared at the water for a bit and placed her hand inside. Her face turned red almost instantly from the sensation she felt. Oh my, this is actually soothing, Yuri said as she removed her hand from the water. I'd expect nothing less of my master. She walked out of the VIP bathhouse and strolled outside to see Sato speaking with Goran. Was it to your liking? Goran asked. Yes, I'm surprised you guys got the hot spring so well, although the building does look like it's going to collapse anytime. Sato responded. Apologizes, we elves weren't exactly good at building, but we did use the cold and warm magic fabrics you gave us in the water. Goran said. Yeah, I checked, good job, Sato complimented him. He looked at the building for a while. Maybe I should consider hiring some builders. I'll be on my way then, we still have to get the transport you requested for. Goran said with his head bowed. Sure, Sato said. With that, Goran whooshed away at full speed, leaving a powerful breeze to blow after he left. As soon as Goran left, a dark shadow manifested from the ground before Orland appeared on his knees beside Sato. Lord Sato, they are here, Orland reported. It's about time. Sato smiled before walking away with Orland and Yuri following behind him. Sato walked over to the entrance of the village and met about 150 beast people lined up at the entrance. Karen and 2 other tiger beasts walked forward to meet Sato, who had behind him most of the elves. You must be, Lord Sato. My son told me about you, the appointments leader of the elves. The huge tiger beast man with a scar on his eyes said. Yes, I am, and I assume he told you about the plan as well. Sato asserted. Yes, he did. I should introduce myself. I am the chief of the beast people, Rugard. It's a pleasure doing business with you. Rugard introduced himself with his arms stretched out for a handshake. Nice to meet you too, Sato shook him. I should go straight to business. Did you notice any vampires following you? He asked. I doubt we could tell even if they are vampires after all. Rugard responded. It's a good thing I sent Elena and Devanshi to guard them in the shadows, just in case. Sato muttered in his mind. So, how do you plan to accommodate us? Surely you don't think we can all fit in this small place? Karen uttered. Oh, I won't be the one accommodating you, my friend will be doing that. They are Valkyries, so you can expect they'll be welcoming. Sato smiled, leaving the beastman puzzled. Rizaha, home of the Valkyries. Asterisk. Benihime was sitting at her table, doing some paperwork when she heard a knock on her door. Come in, she voiced out. Isla opened the door with a smile on her face. Lady Heim, there's someone here to see you. She said. Benihime and Isla went to the council room where most of the Valkyries were already seated. Benihime walked in and met Deka standing in the middle. Who might you be? She said before sitting on her small throne. I came to give a message from my lord, Sato Inagami. He was once a prisoner here, Deka reported. Sato, Benihime muttered, and she immediately remembered the boy she kept imprisoned after he was found in the Forest of Witches. Oh, so he's doing well, I presume. Benihime uttered as she looked at the exciting expression on Isla's face. What does the massage say? I'm very much interested. Chapter 27 16 Golds or a Duel. Less than a few hours before the arrival of the beast people. Greater than. Sato sat down on the ground with some weapons that he looted from the vampire's wagons. He stared at them for a while with his hand on his jaw. Maybe if I alter them to be lighter. He thought out loud. Less than I believe that would be a wise decision, although it has its repercussions. The lighter you make the weapon, the easier it is for an enemy to knock it off. Greater than. Sato fell to the ground with a loud groan. I'll do this later, right now, I'm not feeling motivated at all. He uttered. Lord Sato. Deka called out as he approached Sato. My lord, you summoned me. He said with a stop. Oh right. Sato jumped up from the ground and landed on his feet before turning to Dicky. I need you to do a little something for me, it's a solo mission by the way. He explained. Solo. Yes, solo, Sato continued. See, when I first arrived here, the Valkyries took me as their prisoner, they thought I was a devil and wanted to annihilate me, worst 3 days of my life. Lord Sato, are you positive they were Valkyries? Because if I got the story right, they are servants of the god Odin, what would one be looking for in the Demon Empire? Beats me, Sato replied. Anyway, they stayed in a village south of here, I say village although it's a very wide place. He uttered. Are you hoping to pay them a visit, Lord Sato? Deka asked. No, you're paying them a visit. Lord Sato was right, Valkyries are living outside the Forest of Witches, we never even noticed them. Deka said to himself. Clearing her throat, Benihime brought Deka out of his thoughts. You are yet to deliver the message. She voiced out. My apologies, Deka uttered. He reached out the roll of paper he was holding and waited for one of the Valkyries to take it from his hand and give it to Benihime. Still sitting on her throne, Hina reached out for the paper and began reading it. After a few minutes she let out a laugh. Everyone's eyes were on her, especially Deka, who had expected something like that to happen. For a once prisoner, he sure does know how to have high expectations for the people that locked him up. Benihime uttered with a laugh. Deka tried to hide the sudden anger that was building up inside. Is something the matter? He asked. He expects me, you take in 150 beast men, does he think this is some kind of hostel? Benihime asked sarcastically. I'm sure the message covers the predicament the beast men found themselves in. My lord is only doing this out of the kindness in his heart, of course, he isn't asking you to do it for free, Deka asserted and stretched out a bag of money. 16 gold coins, Deka voiced out. The whole room gasped at the huge money Deka was holding so casually, even Isla, who was standing beside Benihime, was shocked. Where the hell did Sato get this much money from? Isla yelled in her mind, but the calm look on Benihime's face brought her back to her senses. I'm supposed to take this as a bribe. Benihime frowned a bit at the sight. Okay, since money is out of the way, I have to use another means. Deka thought to himself, perhaps, is the money too small? He asked. You can tell your leader, I don't plan to do business with. How about a duel then? Deka chimed in. Benihime's eyes immediately lit up a bit. Oh, you wish to battle? She asked with a smirk. I believe your pride won't let you take money from a low-class species like myself, but how about a duel? If I win, you accept my lord's request. Deka expressed. And indeed he did look like a low-class species since he had rags on rather than actual clothes. Benihime looked at him for a while. And what if I win? What could you possibly offer me? She asked. Nothing much, I'll just leave the same money you rejected right here and leave unless you want something more. Deka responded with no hesitation in his eyes. Benihime let out another laugh. Okay, fine then, Hina, if you don't mind. She called out. Hein stood up from where she was seated and walked toward Benihime with her sword around her waist. Lady Heim, Hina called out with her left hand placed on her left chest. Take him up on his offer, will you? Benihime said with a smile. Hina and Deka stood in the middle of the arena while the remaining Valkyries all sat down around to watch the match. Hina drew out her sword. Do you not have a weapon to wield? I can help with that. She voiced out. There will be no need for that, Deka replied. A dark mist formed in his hand and his scythe appeared, leaving a small force of wind to spread. Very well then, prepare yourself. Hina said before taking a fight stance with her sword raised to the level of her face. As long as I have Lord Sato's blessings, taking her down should be easy. Deka thought to himself before taking a stance too. Less than back at the Forest of Witches. Greater than. Elena and Devanshi sat down on the trees to keep watch of intruders. They've been doing that ever since the Beast People's departure. Have you seen anything yet? Devanshi asked. No, milady, nothing. Elena responded. With a sigh Devanshi stood up. We should head back, we don't want to miss the whole departure because of this. Hold on my lady, I sense something, Elena said before jumping down from the tree branch and Devanshi jumped right after. 1, no 2. Devanshi smiled. Vampires, it's about time. She whooshed into one of the bushes and came out with her hand around a vampire's neck. He was wearing a dark cloak that covered his face but his red eyes could still be seen glowing. Chapter 28 A Valkyrie versus an Elf. Deka kept using his scythe to deflect all of Hina's sword attacks while moving around the arena with speed. Hina was increasing her speed with every swing she took, but she was also surprised to see that an elf was standing his ground against her. She was about to take another strike when Deka used his scythe to push her sword to the side. She was shocked at the action and looked to her right to see that Deka was sending a blow with his other hand that was wrapped up in red-like energy. Hina immediately let go of her sword and leapt back to evade the punch, leaving her sword to fall to the ground. Although Deka's punch didn't hit, it still sent a wide force of the wind to spread around the arena. Once Hina landed on the ground, she looked at Deka for a while with a bit of surprise. "You are no ordinary elf, are you?" she asked. Deka pulled back his fist and stood straight. "I'm afraid I am, just not the weak one you imagined," he replied. Once things for sure, Hina stretched out her hand and her sword flew to her position before she held it. "Now, I don't have to hold back," she asserted. Taking another fighting stance, Hina positioned her sword to her face level and stood firm with 4 glowing swords hovering at her sides. "Please don't, I want this to be a fair fight," Deka yelled. He ran toward her before jumping to the sky with the scythe. Hina immediately blocked the scythe with her sword, but the force still brought her to her knees. Deka was still on top, grunting as he added more strength to bring Hina down with his scythe sparking tiny lightnings. Hina struggled to get to her feet, but she couldn't outbest his strength, so she took a different approach. She tilted her sword to the side a bit, which made Deka lose his balance and grip on the scythe. Deka immediately received a kick to his ribs that sent him crashing to the ground. With multiple landings, he finally stopped and laid on the ground for a while. "Ah, she got me," Deka said before he slowly stood up to his knees. "Shit." He panicked. Looking up, he could see Hina building a huge amount of light beam at the tip of her sword, which was aimed at him. Deka immediately stretched out his hand to call for his scythe, and it came answering with speed. Once the scythe was in Deka's hand, he placed it in front of him before Hina could send the light beam his way. Deka's scythe was able to deflect the light with the small frontal barrier he put up, but that didn't stop the light from cracking it. The energy destroyed the ground beside and behind him. Deka was the only thing in his surroundings not getting destroyed by the light. Lady Haim, isn't she taking this a little too far?" Akari uttered. She was sitting beside Benihime and Isla, who were both captivated by the fight, to even reply. When she got no response, Akari sighed and used her hand fan to cover the bottom half of her face before uttering, "Oh points. Relax, Akari, if I see things get out of hand, I'll cancel the battle." Benihime revealed, but her eyes were still fixed on the battle. Deka struggled to keep the barrier up. It was gradually cracking and the light was starting to pierce through it. "Say you give up, and I promise to cease my attack," Hina yelled while she kept on pushing her light beam toward Deka. "Damn it, she's strong," Deka muttered. He tightened the grip on the scythe and began to take slow steps forward. Some of the light was speeding past him as he slowly moved and split the beam in two. The other Valkyries were surprised that Deka could still move. Hina herself had to switch the way she held her sword in order to add more force into the light beam. "I refuse to lose," Deka yelled. A dark flame rushed out of the scythe and began to push the light back. Both sides began pushing their attacks at each other, with raging screams from both sides who refused to give in to the other. Huge energy began to build in the center where the two different energies met, causing the area to explode from the pressure. The whole arena was blown to smithereens and covered in dust, making it hard for anyone to see who was still standing. Benihime had a smile on her face when the arena exploded. "Oh, an elf standing toe-to-toe with Hina, that's truly entertaining," she muttered. Even while the rest of the Valkyries ran to the arena to check up on them, Benihime and Akari remained seated. "Lady Haim," Akari called out. She moved closer to her and whispered, "Pure elves aren't meant to be this powerful, they are only D-ranked races at best." "I don't know, I'm looking at one, right one," Benihime teased. "Lady Haim," Akari yelled, trying to tell her to take this seriously. "If this is the doing of the Sato guy, then my prediction was right, we should be wary of him," she asserted. "I'll give it some thought later," Benihime replied with a smile. Akari sighed. She knew Benihime was hardly listening to her. Once a battle is at play, she always puts that first. Isla was in the smoke walking around with the rest of the Valkyries as they tried to find out if Hina and Deka survived. "Hina, Hina," Isla called out as she moved around in the dust. "It's no use, I'm going to have to get rid of this dust," she muttered. Isla pulled out her sword, and with a roar, she stabbed her sword to the ground with so much power that all the dust in the area cleared from the wind it created. As soon as the dust cleared, they heard a loud feminine scream coming from the left side of the arena. "Hina," Isla yelled. She immediately sheathed her sword and ran toward the scream. When she got there, she met Deka and Hina almost naked. Deka had no clothes on and Hina was using her arms to cover her boobs since it was only her skirt that was still intact. Deka was oblivious to the fact that he was naked. He stood in front of Hina and aimed his scythe at her while she was seated on the ground with a flustered look on her face. Chapter 29 Devanshi wants the vamps. Sato stood in the forest while he watched from afar, the beast people unloading their belongings into the Chelly slime's stomach. This was the same slime that Sato had an encounter with while he was locked up in the cell at Rizaha. The thought made the beast people confused at first, but Sato had altered the Chelly slime so much that it had an infinite amount of space in its belly. Not to speak of the fact that it was slowly forming into a human shape. "Hey, don't rush, stay in line," Jiro yelled as he pointed at the alligator beast man. What are you yapping about? I'm in the line. The alligator replied. No, you've separated from the line, you dunce. Jiro shouted again. The alligator looked around and noticed he was a bit out of the queue. I apologize, my mistake. He said calmly. You better be, I was about to run some Jiro justice on you. Jiro laughed pridefully with his hand on his waist. The alligator grunted as he was starting to get pissed off at Jiro's irritating behavior. Gambi, a female elf, walked over to the scene and pulled Jiro away. What the hell are you thinking picking a fight with Lord Sato's guest? She yelled. Jiro folded his arms. Look, these people ain't your typical monsters, they are beast people, as in, the same species that waged war on the god Ophiuchus. Niceness isn't their thing. He responded with a smug look. Gambi couldn't tell if he was just acting or actually stupid. With a sigh, she stood up straight. You go take over the water resources, I'll handle coordinating with the beast people. Gambi uttered. You sure, you're not really much of a fighter? Jiro said with a deadpan look on his face. Just go, she yelled. Sato smiled as he watched other elves work together to coordinate the beast people. I hope this works, I just played a risky bet, kinda like Sporty with a bit more risk. He muttered to himself. A dark mist showed up beside him and Orland appeared. Lord Sato, the beast people are done putting their stuffs in the slime. And the horses are ready for departure. He reported. Well, that was quick. Sato replied, I hope they didn't carry little stuff for the trip, they might be there a while. He said with a nervous smile. No, my lord, I can assure you it was quite a lot, we were only fast thanks to the Latina's guidance. Orland responded. I see, let's go then. Sato and Orland walked over to where all the beast people were gathered, and the leader, Rogard, didn't miss his chance after spotting Sato. Lord Sato, I was starting to think you abandoned my people and ran away. Rogard voiced out with a laugh. Lord Rogard, what could drive you to think this? Sato responded. It's simple really, sure you agreed to help us find a place, and our agreement stands, but that said, you haven't exactly told us where we are going. Rogard said, and this time with a serious voice. Sato stared at him for a while. I guess it's time I let you in on my plan. He said with a serious look of his own. Less than notice, subordinates Devanchi and Elena has made encounter with some vampires. Greater than. As expected, they are vampires after all. Sato muttered to himself before looking at Lord Rogard. How about we discuss this somewhere more privately? ... Back in the forest, Devanchi and Elena were fighting with multiple vampires, 4 in total. Elena leapt back with her hand on her sword while she moved closer to Devanchi. Milady, they have good teamwork, taking them on is going to be difficult. Devanchi sighed, you just watch and learn. She said with a crazy smile as fire enveloped her fists, I've been itching for a fight. Bikum. Devanchi whooshed to the front, and the first punch she threw was blocked by a vampire who immediately felt the pain right after. The punch pushed him back, and he slid on the ground. Once he was at a standstill, he looked at his arms and saw it was already battered. You're no ordinary species, are you? The vampire uttered with a cold voice. How about you find out yourself? Devanchi smiled again before launching herself toward the vampire. While she was charging toward him, the vampire removed his cloak and Devanchi could see his bright red eyes. As soon as she made eye contact with him, she found her position switched with the vampires, which led to her falling to the ground with her own weight. Wasn't I just? Devanchi uttered. She immediately stood to her feet and was ready to attack when she spotted the vampire standing a few feet away from her. Before she could move, the tree beside Devanchi suddenly switched position with the vampire and he was instantly at Devanchi's side. The vampire didn't waste any time, he sent a fast punch at Devanchi, but she blocked it with her palm. The punch did send her back a bit, but that only added to the adrenaline she was feeling. She could see Alana dodging the rest of the vampires all on her own and was hoping she'd hold out a little longer. You have the ability to change positions with anything at will? Devanchi asked. That's for me to know, and for you to shut up. The vampire uttered. Oh, you're all about the fight, exactly what I like. Devanchi yelled and fire came rushing out of her mouth and straight at the vampire. He was shocked at how fast and huge the flames were, but his survival instinct also clinked in at the sight. The vampire immediately smashed his hand on the ground, which caused the earth to erect and from a rocky wall to block the fire. That still wasn't enough, the fire shattered the stones in an instant and went on to burn the vampire. The vampire didn't scream, instead he just faded away like an illusion with no sound made. Devanchi didn't pay attention to it since she's been wanting to save Elena from the remaining vampires. Chapter 30 The Beast People's Departure. Devanchi dashed toward Elena's side before any of the vampires could get to her. You managed to hold your own against 4 vampires, that's impressive. Devanchi complimented. Thank you milady. Elena uttered while she was still in her battle pose. Now that that's settled, Devanchi covered her entire body with flames before clenching both her fists. It's time to deliver some pain. She said with an excited smile on her face. Why is a strong being such as yourself, defending on feeble creatures? All the 4 vampires said together in unison. Elena and Devanchi looked at the vampire one by one, the way the vampires all spoke together threw them off a bit. Now I understand, you're the same person. Devanchi claimed. The vampires started walking toward themselves till they formed into one being. Congratulations, you figured it out. The vampire said as he flexed his red eyes and fangs. So, you're one person. That's pretty disappointing, Devanshi uttered before putting out the flames on her body. Why are you vampires threatening the beast people? Elena asked. The vampire immediately sent a cold glare at her. You haven't earned the right to speak to me, you D-ranked trash bag. He insulted. Elena had her eyes focused on the ground as the rage inside her began to build up from the insult. Anyway, why not join us on our... Before the vampire could finish speaking, Elena had already zoomed toward him with her body covered in lightning and her eyes producing the same energy. The vampire was shocked by the speed. He tried to move back but Elena was following every step of the way. Switching the way she held her sword to a backhand, Elena sliced the two hands of the vampire before seizing her advance. The slash from her blade was so sharp that it cut down most of the nearby trees around clean. Elena stared at her blade in shock as she looked at the damage they inflicted with just a single swing. Did I do that? She muttered to herself. The vampire's blood began to spew from his severed arms. My hands. You cut off my hand. Ah, he kept on crying. Elena looked at the vampire as she walked. Her eyes were still filled with disbelief and was still surprised that she sliced the arms of an S-class species. Good job, girl, you got him good, Devanshi said, walking toward Elena with a grin on her face. Milady, I swear I didn't know I was even strong enough to move like that. Elena expressed. Devanshi laughed. Why do you feel the need to explain yourself? Strength is a good thing once you have something you're fighting for. Devanshi hinted, before patting Elena on the head. A smile made its way to Elena's lips as she stared at her blade with a bit of pride from the fact that she brought a vampire to his knees. Okay, smarty. Devanshi bent before raising the vampire's head with his hair. You'll be coming with us. ... Back in the village, Sato came out of the building with Rugard after explaining his plan to him. When Sato got outside, he met Yuri speaking with Devanshi who had a vampire on her shoulder. Took them long enough. Sato walked toward them leaving Rugard to tend to his people. When he got closer he met Dicky standing with his two servants. Sato wasn't quick to notice since this time, Dekka was wearing actual clothes. Dekka, Sato called out with a bit of doubt. Lord Sato, Dekka voiced and bowed his head a little. I have returned from my journey. I can see that, Master, Devanshi shouted before jumping and giving Sato a hug with her boobs rubbing against his face. Boobs, boobs, Sato panicked in his mind. Oh, I missed you so much I could die, Devanshi said while she kept snuggling him with her boobs. Out of nowhere, Yuri threw a small fast-moving rock at Devanshi. The rock connected to her forehead and sent her falling to the ground. Master, are you alright? Yuri asked as she held his hand with a concerned look on her face. What do you mean by? I've sworn I saw a bug right beside you just now. Was I able to annihilate it? She asked with the same concerned look. You little, Devanshi yelled, standing from the ground and storming toward Yuri. Why the hell did you stone me? Devanshi yelled. Why whatever do you mean? I was just doing my job as my master's servant, which includes getting rid of bugs. Yuri replied with a warm smile. Devanshi lost it and pulled her face closer to Yuri with fire burning on her hand. I'm going to rearrange your face. She threatened. Yuri still had a calm look on, but her body was oozing with dark energy. I'll certainly love to see you try. She responded. Sato just snuck out of there and walked over to Dekka, leaving his two servants to yell at each other at the back. So, how was it? Sato asked. It went well, they agreed to let them settle there till the whole vampire predicament dies down. Dekka responded. Damn, you managed to convince her. Did she take the gold bribe, or perhaps a battle? Sato asked again with curiosity written all over him. No, she refused the money. I had to duel one of her subordinates before she agreed to it. Dekka replied. Sato smiled at the reply before patting Dekka on the shoulder. You did a good job, now let's finish this transport, I'm tired. Sato walked over to the beast people and told them that they were ready to take off. He informed them about where they were going and sent Dekka to guide the way, with 2 horses and his Chelly slime. Once Dekka and the beast people had left the village, Sato immediately went to the warehouse to lie on his hay bed. I'm so tired, Sato said as he stared at the ceiling. Perfect, I've managed to gain the trust of the beast people and hopefully the Valkyries. He thought to himself. Seems like we all have a common enemy, the demons. ... City of Fiora, Resistance of the King. A man wearing a black military-like outfit with a military hat was sitting outside of a huge white castle. There was a small open garden where he had always been going to have a drink or two. Rising the glass up, he stared at it as light from the sun reflected on the glass, nothing like pure wine from the Herzog kingdom. He said with a smile. A lady dressed in a similar military attire walked in on him while he was drinking with her head bowed. Your Highness, I have some reports about the survey teams. The middle-aged woman uttered. The woman stopped when she heard the way the king was sipping his wine loudly. Oh, please Rika, don't stop on my account, carry on. The man said with a smile before reaching for the bottle of wine to fill his cup. ...